The Middle East is often called one of the most conflict-ridden regions in the world. When people think about the Middle East, images of war, political turmoil, and unrest often come to mind. But the reality is far more complex. The region's many wars are the result of a web of historical, ethnic, religious, political, economic, and geopolitical factors, layered upon each other over centuries. To truly understand why there have been, and continue to be, so many wars in the Middle East, we need to explore the deep roots of these conflicts, the actors involved, and the shifting dynamics that make peace elusive. At the heart of many Middle Eastern conflicts lies its incredible diversity. The region is home to a vast array of ethnic groups, languages, and religious sects, often living in close proximity but with competing identities and interests. Arabs are the largest ethnic group, but the Middle East is also home to Kurds, Persians, Turks, Assyrians, Armenians, and many others. Religiously, it is the birthplace of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. However, within Islam, there are major sects like Sunni and Shia Islam, whose rivalry dates back to the earliest days of Islamic history, and continues to influence politics and conflicts to this day. The Sunni-Shia divide is one of the most significant fault lines in the region. Sunnis make up the majority of the Muslim world, including countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey, while Shias constitute the majority in Iran and Iraq, and have significant communities elsewhere. This sectarian divide is not merely theological, but has evolved into a political struggle for regional influence. The rivalry between Saudi Arabia and Iran is often viewed as a proxy for this sectarian tension, with both countries supporting opposing factions in conflicts from Syria and Yemen to Lebanon and Bahrain. Adding another layer of complexity is the Kurdish population. The Kurds, numbering around 30 million, are one of the world's largest stateless ethnic groups. They inhabit parts of Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Their quest for autonomy or independence has led to numerous conflicts, particularly with the Turkish government and in Syria and Iraq. The Kurds' strategic location and military capabilities, especially during the fight against ISIS, have made them key players in regional dynamics. The borders of many Middle Eastern countries were largely drawn by European powers after World War I, with little regard for the ethnic, tribal, and sectarian realities on the ground. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire led to the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret 1916 deal between Britain and France to divide Ottoman lands into spheres of influence. This colonial legacy created artificial borders that grouped diverse and often antagonistic groups into single states, sowing the seeds for future conflict. For example, Iraq was formed by merging three Ottoman provinces with very different populations: Sunni Arabs, Shia Arabs, and Kurds. This lack of cohesion made governing difficult and set the stage for decades of internal strife, dictatorship, and war. Lebanon, with its mosaic of Christians, Sunnis, Shias, Druze, and others, experienced a brutal civil war from 1975 to 1990, fueled by sectarian divisions and external interventions. The creation of Israel in 1948 was a pivotal event that dramatically reshaped the region's geopolitics and conflicts. The displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, the refusal of many Arab states to recognize Israel, and the competing nationalist aspirations have led to repeated wars and ongoing violence. The Arab-Israeli conflict has produced several wars in 1948, 1956, 1967, and 1973, and countless smaller clashes. The Palestinian struggle for statehood and the Israeli security concerns remain unresolved and deeply polarizing. Oil and natural gas reserves add an enormous economic dimension to Middle Eastern conflicts. The region holds about half of the world's proven oil reserves and significant natural gas deposits, making it a critical energy supplier to the global economy. Control over these resources means immense wealth and power, but also competition and interference. Many wars and coups have been connected to oil wealth, and foreign powers often seek influence over oil-rich countries, further complicating conflicts. Water scarcity is another critical factor. The Middle East is among the world's most water-poor regions. Rivers like the Tigris, Euphrates, Jordan, and Nile cross multiple national boundaries, making water a strategic and contentious resource. Disputes over water rights exacerbate tensions, especially between Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Israel-Palestine. With climate change intensifying droughts and desertification, water conflicts are expected to become even more acute. Geopolitical rivalries, both local and international, have perpetuated and expanded conflicts. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union competed for influence in the region, often supporting opposing sides in conflicts. Today, global powers like the US, Russia, and China remain deeply involved. Regional powers, especially Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey, and Israel, also vie for dominance. Proxy wars in Syria, Yemen, and Libya exemplify how external actors fuel local conflicts for their own strategic interests. The Iranian Revolution of 1979 was a major turning point. It replaced the US-backed Shah with a theocratic Islamic republic under Ayatollah Khomeini, shaking the regional balance. Iran's revolutionary ideology and efforts to export its influence alarmed Sunni monarchies in the West, leading to decades of hostility. The brutal Iran-Iraq War, 1980-1988, resulted from this rivalry and was one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 20th century, causing an estimated 1 million deaths. The rise of Islamist extremist groups has further destabilized the region. Organizations like Al-Qaeda and ISIS exploited governance failures, sectarian divisions, and post-invasion chaos in Iraq and Syria to gain territory and carry out terrorist attacks worldwide. ISIS's self-declared caliphate in 2014 shocked the world with its brutality and ability to control large swaths of land. The international coalition formed to defeat ISIS involved complex alliances and competing agendas. Authoritarianism and weak governance are common in many Middle Eastern states, contributing to instability. Corruption, lack of political freedoms, economic inequality, and human rights abuses fuel popular discontent and sometimes violent uprisings. The Arab Spring uprisings that began in 2010 sought democratic reform but led to varied outcomes. Regime change in Tunisia and Egypt, brutal civil wars in Syria and Libya, and heightened repression elsewhere. The socio-economic pressures in the region, including high unemployment, especially among youth, poverty, and inadequate public services, create fertile ground for radicalization and recruitment by militant groups. Demographic factors like a youth bulge strain limited resources and opportunities, intensifying social tensions. The arms trade heavily influences the persistence of conflict. The Middle East is the largest global importer of weapons, with billions spent annually on military hardware. The influx of arms from countries like the US, Russia, France, and others not only fuels existing conflicts but makes peace harder to achieve. Despite these challenges, the Middle East also has a rich history of coexistence and cultural exchange. For centuries, cities like Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, and Cairo were vibrant centers of science, philosophy, art, and religion, where diverse communities lived together. This cultural legacy underscores that conflict is not inevitable, but rather the result of specific historical and political developments. International diplomacy has had some successes. The Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel in 1978 and the recent Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, demonstrate that peace is possible. However, deep-rooted mistrust, unresolved grievances, and external interests continue to impede comprehensive solutions. Humanitarian crises caused by wars in the Middle East are staggering. Millions of refugees have fled violence, overwhelming neighboring countries in Europe. Displacement, poverty, and loss of infrastructure have created immense suffering, with children often paying the highest price. In summary, the many wars in the Middle East arise from a complicated mixture of historical legacies, ethnic and religious diversity, competition over resources, geopolitical rivalries, governance failures, and social pressures. Each conflict has its own dynamics, but is also interconnected in a broader regional and global context. Understanding these factors is essential to grasp the complexity of the Middle East and the challenges of achieving lasting peace.